Hello friends of WildRift and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video. For today we are going to take a look at the high elo tier list for patch 3.5a. But before we hop into it, let's talk about our question of the day. Do you love my cat? To convince you for a second, I'll let you listen to him. Mikesh, say hello to the audience. Do you love them? Little cat. Anyways, let's move over to the video. Our first pick of the patch for the Baron lane in this patch is going to be Mr. Jax. This lovely weapon master is still a big problem up in the Baron lane. One of the only counter picks available in the game against the Jax is still a Fiora. Fiora will in the late game just demolish the Jax, but Jax in solo queue will always be a threat. But why is that so? As you know, people in solo queue have a major issue dealing with split push, especially or namely with Hullbreaker users. Once you enter mid-game and the cannon wave starts stacking up, you'll see 3 to 8 cannons on the side lane running down the lane, and if people don't necessarily deal with that, you will see that the game ends on that specific wave, or if it doesn't end, your inhibitor will be lost. With the inhibitor being lost, the pressure is now on, which means that the Jax is completely free to do whatever he wants to do. One of the biggest issues that then comes to happen is that super minions are running into the base, and Jax can even empower them with the Hullbreaker. Now, for you people to understand, magic damage dealers cannot really deal with Hullbreaker minions. It just doesn't work, they don't kill them, they are too tanky. And now if you think about people who have the most reliable wave clear, you would think about mages, right? But they can't deal with the waves anymore, and Jax will dive them. So as the game goes on, this will become a major problem that the enemy team has to deal with, and it requires a lot of coordination and actual skill to answer properly. And if that doesn't happen, you'll just auto-lose after some time. But what makes Jax so good during the laning phase? Let's put it that way. If you're running Grasp of the Undying, you have very strong burst rates. Especially thanks to Jax's third ability Counter-Strike, no melee champion can really approach him that easily without fearing for his life, basically. However, with the changes to bone plating, it's slightly easier nowadays, but you have to think about what if Jax also takes bone plating. He might just all-in you level 1 because minions don't really matter to him because he just dodges all of their attacks. And if he gets to trade you this early on, you need to understand that the window he'll create for himself, in which there will be an HP differential, you need to do something about it afterwards. With the cooldown he has on his Counter-Strike, you need to punish him or get something done, and if you don't do this, he'll get level 2 before you and he'll just all-in you and run you down. And if you don't get any assistance, that's basically the game for you. Which means level 1 is the most important phase for a Jax player. Obviously, after the first reset, it changes a bit again, but just keep in mind, the very first level is one of the most crucial things in the Baron lane. And this is our full tier list for the Baron lane. Our next pick of the patch comes for the jungle role, and here we have Shen. And yes, you've heard it right, Shen is actually a broken champion in the jungle. They've changed his first ability to deal AoE damage anyway, plus they changed the cap for its monster damage. Now it does its previous max range damage already on level 1, which means Shen is destroying jungle camps. Contrary to before, he took a lot of time clearing his jungle, but now those times are over. He'll be able to clear it super fast and match all other jungles. Now we come to the beauty of Shen. Usually as a jungler you find it sometimes troublesome to be where you should be, or your team wants you to be, let's put it this way. As a jungler, your team always wants you to be with them, and it doesn't even matter if they're right or wrong, they just want to have the feels good moment. But with Shen, you can actually give that to them since you have a global ultimate ability. So even if they happen to get ganked by the enemy jungle, you can still show up and just beat them down. And with Shen's reliable crowd control he can offer, plus the lovely shield against auto attacks, he can turn the fight into his favor very easily. Also, don't forget the Protect enchant and Protect as well are really good items on Shen, as they provide even more value towards his shielding, and once he arrives he even has another shield for his allies. And this is our full tier list for the jungle role. The next lane on this list is the mid lane, and here we have Diana. Diana has been buffed recently and we don't really understand why. However, it's a buff that isn't that much of a matter, because listen to this. Diana's third ability always resets when she dashes to somebody who's afflicted with moonlight. And Diana's typical gameplay is to dash towards those people with Moonlight and then go from there and wait for another Q cooldown. Now, with the reduction of her third ability's cooldown upon missing something, for example, she just has more of a grace period, or rather a protection for quote-unquote bad play. She's allowed to make more mistakes without getting punished and without sitting on a super high cooldown. If we therefore imagine that the Diana player is playing Pixel Perfect, this change doesn't really do too much. But obviously having any kind of buff is always more than welcome. But don't get fooled by such little things, because usually they matter way less than you believe. However, a change to base HP and everything regarding to base stats is always hugely impactful. For example, giving a champion 50 base health level 1 can change the entirety of the laning phase, because he's now allowed to trade differently. Never forget this when you play the game. But there's also something that we need to talk about when it comes to Diana builds. Usually there are two builds going around. Number one, the tanky build with the Rod of Ages and the Rift Maker. On the other hand, we have the massive burst build with the Luden's Echo, the Prophet's Pendant and the Void Staff. It always depends on what type of champions you're facing, but if you're facing a lot of chonky targets that have a lot of burst damage, going for the full burst build yourself might be a little bit too risky. However, if you're facing a lot of squishies that you can literally explode, and going for the full explosion build with Luden's Echo feels just so good and it's so fun to play. And this is our full tier list for the mid lane. Next on the list comes the Dragon lane, and here we have Tristana. Tristana is one of those champions that features super high burst damage and overall nice scaling throughout the game. With the changes to Runons in the previous patch, this champion is now a monster you have to deal with. The champion gains more range per level, and if we hit late game, she'll attack you from a screen away. With the Runons in her inventory, she'll deal 55% of her entire AD to 2 different targets on top of a main target. If you add Red buff and Zeke's Convergence to the mix, you will see that this champion will demolish your entire team within seconds. But there's something that many people don't understand. A lot of AD carries in the game usually are mainly related to just auto attacks. But Tristana is a bit different. Tristana is one of those AD carries that features the highest amount of burst damage possible. And here's why. Tristana has this lovely bomb feature and her ultimate, and every ability she applies to an enemy when the enemy is already afflicted with the bomb will get a stack towards that bomb completion. If the Tristana player is very competent, the player can now shoot the enemy champion with the ultimate ability right into the heart of the enemy team and apply the entirety of the damage from her third ability onto all the people around its explosion. That way you'll deal the maximum amount of damage. Not only that, you'll also reset your second ability Rocket Jump, which will also reset on kills or assist. So if you view Tristana as a champion that can get a lot of things done, you are right. The skill ceiling for this champion can be rather high, but the skill floor is also very low, which means this champion is overall a very good pick for all of the elos, be it high or lower elo. The better you are with this champion, the more kills you'll get during the laning phase, because most people severely underestimate the burst damage that Tristana can do. And this is our entire tier list for the Dragon lane. Last but not least for this list, we have the support role, and here we have this lovely anchorman Nautilus. Nautilus is a super tanky champion that is very difficult to put out of lane. Especially with the introduction of the support items, namely Relic Shield for him, it gets very difficult to even put a dent into his armor. What this Nautilus can do is simply skill his second ability during the laning phase, walk into the wave and just clear the wave without any problem. His second ability is an auto-attack reset and it deals AoE bonus damage around him. With that in mind, any wave can just be instantaneously cleared without any kind of punishment, because Nautilus is just too tanky. If the enemy then however tries to contest a wave, Nautilus can hit level 2 very fast and then all in with his first ability on hitting level 2. Now with the anchor connecting to the enemy and the auto attack rooting the enemy, you will get into a lot of trouble. Doing anything in that kind of sentiment and Nautilus reaching you will automatically grant him Aftershock, which means you will not be dealing any damage to him, and if the enemy carry is allowed to freely hit you, you'll be on the losing end of that trade very quickly. The next issue that comes with that is the easy dive ability with the Nautilus. If he walks up and just auto-attacks you, you just can't move anymore as previously said, and then dying becomes a very problematic thing. To give you a few more tips, I just have to tell you a few things. First, if you're not able to hit your first ability on an enemy champion, what about hitting the terrain behind them? You'll get a cooldown refund on your first ability, and you'll be able to get closer to them to just attack them and root them in place. With them rooted in place, you can just wait for the cooldown of your first ability to refresh again, because it's faster now, and then you can just hit them again once they try to flash away, because your bodily presence will apply too much pressure to them, and with the pressure applied, they will not be able to get anything done. Once you hit level 5, you also have to basically do the following. Just press your ultimate onto a target and then wait for it to get knocked up and then use your first ability onto them. It's a failsafe way of getting somebody and getting somebody killed. That way all your AD carries and teammates will love you. Also, being tanky and dealing a lot of damage is quite the trademark for this champion. And this is our full tier list for the support role. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Rift Guides. We'll provide everything you need at any time. See you soon.